I just want to invest in people that really want to be the best that they can be. Hello, everyone. This is Todd Scrima and my good friend, Mary Frink. And I love this subject. We're doing Be Happy Now and Live Your Best Life. Probably a different spin, maybe, than what you've heard before on some of these things. I was just sharing with Mary that oddly enough, 2 days ago, I was working out, and I love working out to Ed Milet's podcast. He's probably my favorite podcaster, and I'm trying to get him on this show. And he just happened to tackle the same subject, and he had a gentleman on there, I can't pronounce his name, but if you want another dose of this, there's a great podcast Ed did called Understanding the True Nature of Life. And it talks about this idea of happiness and where it comes from. And probably some people much more qualified than Mary and I. I asked Mary to do this because we've worked together for a long time, but everyone has these people that they're around, and I call it being in the moment. They're truly present. It's something that I've struggled with. I had a coach years ago. This is 25 years ago. He says, Todd, have you a kid has a beach ball. He's like 2 years old, and it lands in front of a person. And what do you think that kid is thinking of? And I said, the beach ball. And he says, yeah. He's not thinking about the person, whether they're black or white or gray or fat or short or anything. He just wants the beach ball. That's his number one focus. He's in the present. So for me, he said people either live in the past, present, or future, or a combination. I've never lived in the past. I can't remember what I did yesterday. I can't remember what I did. If I go home tonight and someone asks me what I did today, I literally will open my calendar on my phone because I literally forget. So I have nothing in the past about me. Because of that, I think it's something that helps me, because when I make mistakes, I don't beat myself up about it for 20 years. I literally think, oh, that's a mistake. Put that on the chalkboard, not to do that again. Never think about it again. And that's kind of how I am. I am probably 40% in the present right now. Probably 5 years ago, I was probably 10% in the present. So I'm on this journey to be more present instead of being future-based. I think Mary, and I don't know these things for a fact, but Mary is just one of these people. She lights up a room. Everyone loves her. She is an enigmatic personality. She truly cares about people. It's super obvious. And she's just a great human being. So Mary, thanks for being on the show. She told me, Todd, I would only do this for you. That's what she tells me. When the CEO asks you to do something, that's the only reason I'm doing it. So I appreciate your trust. So Mary, I'm going to ask you a bunch of open-ended questions and then we'll bounce around. How is this something that you learned well, first of all, do you think you live mostly in the present, past, or future? Just so I know what your thoughts are.
I definitely have been a work in progress, and now I'm living in the moment for sure. I actually bought a sign, I think, a Hobby Lobby or something. It said, don't look back, you're not going that way. So I have a sign like that. It hangs up in my hallway. So at the end of the day, I see it like, don't look back, you're not going that way. It's okay. Our pasts do shape who we are, but you don't have to live there.
Have you always been that way?
Absolutely not.
No. So explain that.
I think for me, I grew up with a lot of expectation and ideas that were really great and a lot of strong foundations in a certain way. But I also just was allowed to raise my ceiling, as we always say, just raise your ceiling and see a different life. Like the version of the life that maybe people had for you doesn't necessarily have to be the version that you live today, and allowing yourself just to have fun with it and have more joy and choose joy. As you know, our favorite Robin always says, choose joy.
Yeah.
So it's easy to stay in the negative, but I choose joy every day.
What was there a moment or that you remember where you're like, wow, that's a before and after moment on this subject? There probably was several.
There are probably several. I do remember at one point I had I lived in Florida for a while, so I had relocated home, and I was selling actually Italian charm bracelets. I don't know if any of you guys remember those, but that was eons ago in a past life. And I was having so much fun because I had a sales job. I was in loans before I moved back home from Florida. And I said, Mom, I feel so bad. Like everybody is so downtrodden at this time. This was like 2002, and there's just a lot of stuff going on. And I said, I feel bad. Like in our family, there's a lot of dynamic going on at that time, but I'm so happy. And she said, you know, hon, you need to enjoy the happy, because there'll be a time in your life when you're happy. There'll be a time when you're not so happy. So be sure that these happy times take you through the rest. And, you know, that was years ago, probably 2002. And I was like, she's right.
You know, sometimes your parents say that one thing and it sticks with you. So parents that are listening to this, you do make a difference, just so you know. I have some of those stories. Like I've actually had this discussion with my father, was a couple weekends ago for my daughter's birthday. And I told him one thing that he taught me. And he's like, you're right, son. I don't remember saying I don't remember that moment. And I have several of them. So I talked about a few of them, and he's like, yeah, don't remember that one either. You know, he's 82, but you know, those, I call them magic moments. They're moments that if you pay attention, you can really learn from them, and it sticks with you. And I actually think that every week, all of us have 2, 3, 4, 5 magic moments. It's just sometimes we listen and sometimes we don't. So hopefully this is one of those times where you're like, yeah, I listened to the stupid podcast and it made a difference to me. It really hit home. Let me explain a few big concepts and we'll talk about some more specifics. So what is this whole idea of feeling happy? Everything in our life is self-created, and we have imaginations. You know, on this subject, The Diary of Anne Frank is a book about a blind Jewish girl that the Nazis were invading her home in her village, and she hid herself in an attic, and she kept a positive attitude through the worst conditions ever. There was another book that Evangelina Jolie made a movie about. I forgot the name. And it was about a gentleman who plane went down in the army, and he was a prisoner of war for years and was brutally treated. And he came back and ended up forgiving the gentleman who mistreated him. So those stories are inspiring because there are people that are overcoming some major things. And what this subject is about, like, how do you feel happy? I know I've been pretty open with people about my journey. I've always like Mary, I've had that zest for life, that kind of bounce in my step, or that exuberance, or I'm always excited about something big or small. I also beat myself up a lot. I suffered from catastrophication is what I call it. Some of these are Todd terms, so bear with me. That's another fancy word for high anxiety. So I have all this energy, and then sometimes when something bad would happen, I would be like, oh my God, the worst is gonna come, you know, these horrible things are gonna happen. And almost never did any of that come true. There was just things that I made up in my mind. And so I've been on this journey, and what I realized today, being 50 years old and going through a lot of therapy and books and coaching people and seeing myself and other people, is that life is beautiful, and it's really how we treat it. And do we people use this term like glass half full, half empty. I guess that's a simplified way of saying it, but it's here's the biggest thing for me that I've learned is, it's one thing to know the logic and say, oh, glass half full, oh, be happy, hey, be grateful. It's another thing to feel that way in your heart and your soul. They're two different ones. Logic, like logically, hey, we should save money. No one would disagree with that. We should save some money. It's another thing to feel that way, like, hey, I'm building for the future. I'm building a legacy. I'm paying off my car, you know, and feeling that way and feeling like we're making progress. So, so then to take this a little bit further, a couple other concepts. One is, I live by this phrase, will this really matter in 5 years? That's a concept for me that I don't know where I got it, but I think when I'm in the moment of something negative, I'm like, will this really matter in 5 years? And usually my answer is, this won't matter in 2 days. And it helps me feel less anxious and get back to the moment. What's a trick or something that you tell yourself, Mary, along those lines?
For me, I have the 3 people in my life. How would I want some people to talk to my grandmother? She's 99 and she's Italian. She's awesome. She's 99 years old, going to be 100 in October. How would they talk to my little sister? Because she's in a different demographic. She's 12 years younger. And how would they talk to Tiffany, who's my partner in my life? And if you can talk to any of your clients of those 3 people, my family, my sister, my Tiffany, and my grandmother, I feel like if you can talk to them in a way that they would be that person, then you're doing the right thing. So
explain that. You're saying when you feel, say you're having a bad day, that you reach out to those people. Is that what you mean?
Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm saying more of the lines of if you're in the middle of a conversation and you're thinking, how would this person feel about it? I picture one of those people. And I think of how important they are and that they're that important to somebody else. And they're just trying to get information or need to be treated in a certain way. So I try to treat people and receive people the way I would those 3 people in my life.
Interesting. So you transfer the feeling of 3 people that you love in your life to loving feelings for that person, whoever that is.
That's correct.
I see. That's a new one for me. I never knew that. That's a good one. A couple other concepts. One is, again, I forgot where I got this. I'm sure I got it from somewhere. Mountains and anthills. So something comes up and it's an anthill, which means you see it. There's a bunch of ants down there. You don't want to step in it. You just step over it. You know, they're usually like this big. You just step right over it. And then there are mountains. And a mountain would be your best friend calls you and says, hey, doc says I may have terminal cancer. You get the phone call, hey, your child was in a car accident. Those are mountains, right? And we all have mountains and we all have anthills. What I used to do is make the anthills a mountain.
Me too.
And now I don't. So I don't know, why do you think I don't know, other than being anxious, why I would make something small so big.
I think it's just fear. Like it's sort of like, why do you watch something that's negative when you could watch something that's positive? There's something about the way we're hardwired. So, I mean, really, I've been at Summit now since July of 2009. And what I've learned here is, opportunity that you don't, what if you move away and everything falls apart? What if you move away and everything is fantastic? So as much as you instantly go to, this could happen, I just try to turn it in my head and say, yeah, but what if it's the best thing I ever did? And that allows your mind to squash that negative side and feel super awesome about the opportunity and what could come about. And, and even in tragic situations, yes, I no longer have my dad. I love a little differently now. So, I mean, there's things that you can.
Yeah. And I've teeter-totter beyond am I just putting a positive spin on something, or am I really, am I playing some psychological trick? But I know that those things work for me, just like they work for you. I think I shared this story before, but I had a nephew drown in my parents' swimming pool years ago. And I remember being very depressed for about a month. I mean, I've never felt depression like that. Even since, we're talking 30 years ago. And then I woke up one day and I said, what can I learn from this? And I told myself, he didn't get a chance to live. So you better get off your ass and live.
Yeah.
And live the biggest life you can possibly imagine. And I remember where I was when I woke up and said that to myself. Like, it was that vivid to me. And I just told you I don't have a good memory. That's one where I will never forget that. And ever since then, it was just like this, whoa, okay, we got a chance to go to Europe. Yeah, let's do it. Hey, we got a chance to go camping next weekend. Can I rearrange some things, so that I can go camping? Maybe I can go for 3 days instead of 5, and hey, we got a chance to play golf at Pebble Beach. Oh, okay. Without shirking my responsibilities, could I fit that in? And sometimes the answer is still no. But, I just came from a trip So I bought this boat, and I always wanted to buy a big boat. So I bought this big boat, and this is the maiden voyage this last weekend with um, with my children. And the boat's so big, I got to have a captain. So I find out that this buddy that I used to do business with, great, still is a realtor, great realtor. Um, and then we played in a band together. So we had a rock and roll band together where he was the lead singer and I was a guitar player. And now he's a boat captain. And so, we got all kinds of time. We spent 2.5 straight days together, and singing at night with the guitar and cruising down the river and all this stuff. And I said, Roy, I said, boat captain? I said, where did this come from? And he says, his wife was there with us. He said, Tina and I just thought it would be fun. So I became a boat captain. And I said, it was that simple to you? He says, yep. He says, I said, but why? He says, I wanted more adventure. And so in the last 6 months, we've been down to Mexico. We've been up to Canada. We go on all these crazy trips. We meet all these great people, and we're having the time of our lives. So it's kind of like, that idea of, you said it earlier, those possibilities. Like I literally, every day of my life, almost every single day I feel this way. I'm thinking, all I see is opportunity. Like, oh my God, what if we did this? Or what if this happened? And even to Mary's point, even when it's bad things, it takes me about 2 minutes and I'm over to the positive. Like, okay, what does this mean? Right? How can we do this? So I think it's beautiful, actually. Let me go to my handout for a second for those that can see it. Explain a couple other things. You can always get these handouts at beyourbestseries.com. I always do handouts for these. I wanted to do a podcast that had a little bit more kind of meat to it. And I love podcasting. I wanted, for me personally, I didn't want to do a motivational one. I wanted to do something where I could leave and have 1 or 2 or 3 things to do that would, that was more specific, because that's the way I like to be taught. So that's the idea here. The one thing I would point on in here is, and to me, this is a real thing, is I have energy level on this graph, and then your age, 25, 50, and 75. So let me just take one thing, and maybe I'll ask Mary to share something. I had this idea of, hey, and I'll use my boat just as an example. I want to buy a boat. Why do I want to buy a boat? Well, so many things for me that I like to do involve friends and family, and I'm very social. And I figured that was a cool way to combine a new hobby with my relationships that I enjoy. And the reason I did it when I'm 50 instead of when I'm 75 is because I have the chance and the energy level to enjoy it. I also don't know if I'm going to live to be 75. If I'm being totally honest, we're all gonna die, leave the living at some point, at least our physical bodies. So that's just, I believe that's important. I know Mary, Chris Ringrose did one of these podcasts with us, and she's one of our executives, and Mary and her are good friends. And she tells a story on how her father had a pretty successful career. And he says, well, when I retire, we're going to do this. I'm going to retire. We're going to do this. He retired shortly after he retired, literally within a couple of years, his spouse passed away, and he didn't get to do all those things. So this is a graph that hopefully illustrates, how do we live in the now? How do we live in the present? And on the warning box here, it says, hey, this does not mean buying things or going into debt to feel better. That's not, I want to make that super crystal clear. Nothing wrong with spending money as long as you're saving money first. That's my philosophy. But I am not advocating quit your job and move to Europe, and leave the kids. There's a context to all this, and most of it translates into how we feel and how we live each day, and taking a little bit more opportunity to start that hobby or to go on that trip that you told yourself you weren't going to go on. It's those kind of things. Mary, for you, going back to this energy graph, I assume you must have a similar thought process, but I don't know that for a fact. So how do you frame up, hey, because you do so much stuff. you guys are always camping and going on trips. I know you're going on some, a trip I actually want to take, the rafting trip down the Colorado River for 8 days or whatever it is coming
Yes.
up. How does this translate to you? Like, how do you fit all that stuff in there? Because you have a big career and you have a ton of fun.
Mhm. For me, I follow your rules of a budget. So thank you. Saving and saving. And then I have a vacation fund. So I have a vacation fund. And once I meet my saving goals and pay all my budget, then I have an account that goes into my vacation budget. And I love to have stuff on the books. Like, it gives me something to look forward to. I am heading off camping. I have my trailer in front of my house right now. We are taking up our trailer. We go up to Bear River and we spend our summer there, and just enjoying being outside. I think in this industry, we spend a lot of time on the phone and in an office. And I love being outside. I'm always calling it the pine time. And so get outside, get some fresh air in your face, and, just really enjoy that. And just like you with your boat, I think for me, people know that's where I am. So it's been a time where my cousins will come up from Pioneer. It's always an open welcome, like, come up, spend some time at the campsite. There's always room. And it's just a place where we are disconnected from our phones and living a real, just kind of dirty, like we call it the dirty life, right? Like,
Yeah.
and
Fine time, dirty life. I like all the
yeah, fine time, dirty life. And same thing. I lost my dad, and as a lot of the people know. And so when you have a parent that passes away and they didn't get to do the same thing, very similar to Chris, my parents are very hardworking people. And when they retired, they were always going to be doing things. And what you learn from something like that is that you don't always have forever. And so I'm 47 years old, and I look at it and I go, well, I can actually in this position do mortgages probably when I'm quite old, but I can't do some of the things I want to do as I get older. So we're talking with my friends and seeing where we want to go and what trips we want to plan and trying to get it on the books. And then we just make it happen, because that's the other theory we say is we just make it happen, and have fun doing it.
Mary she said this a few times. I just want to make sure people are picking up on this. She sets out with a calendar and they plan it. So this may sound a little over the top to some of you, but my life is planned a year in advance. So myself and my assistant and my kids, we sit down with a blank calendar for 12 months. And I put in all my business stuff that I got to do. And then, okay, I got these vacations. Where are we going? Oh, I've got 8 long weekends. Whoa, what are we doing on those weekends? It might be staying home and have a pajama weekend. That's okay. But if I'm doing that, it's on the schedule. If I'm booking a trip, my rule is either the hotel and or the flights have to be booked. That's my rule. That's when we know that it's booked. And so having the fortitude to plan things. Now, sometimes they change, and sometimes I cancel them. Not very often, but it does happen. But everything's refundable, or I slide the date around or something, but I'm still going on the trip most of the time. I want to segue here to what makes us feel happy, because it relates to what we're talking about. And by the way, when I do things like this, my hope is that people understand I don't think I'm a know-it-all. I have spent a lot of time learning from others. I think one of my best skills is I'm a good learner. I really pay attention to who's successful in certain areas and finding out what exactly they do to get good in those areas. And I'm a big strategic thinker. And so I come up with these ideas. This doesn't mean it's written in stone. It's just my thoughts and feelings of what I've learned by coaching people for over 20 years and being a student. And the experiences that, of course, I have in my life, and having great guests like Mary on to pick their brain. So I boil it down into 3 things that make us feel more happy. Number 1 is strong, healthy, deep relationships. That's a blast of the obvious. However, I wonder how many of us actually spend time on that. My struggle around relationships is I have so many of them. I love people so much that I want to be in deep relationship with all of them. And it's been a learning for me to understand what is realistic and what is not. I think some people just don't think of this when, I don't think they take it as serious. So yeah, do I just mean spouse relationships? No. Let me just use guys, for example. There's a whole book written, I forgot what it's called, The Caveman or something. It's a whole book written on guys need guy time. Girls need girl time. Guys, all these ideas about relationships with the same sex and what does that look like and what does a healthy relationship look like? Why do we need it? So it's not just romantic relationships, it's friendships, it's family, it's relationships with your children. So when I say relationships, it's all encompassing. Mary, how do you have a lot of strong, deep relationships. How do you think about this subject? And that's an open-ended question.
Well, it really is, and you work on them, right? You spend time with them. We started with COVID, we started Front Porch Fridays. So French Port Friday, because we couldn't get together, and I need people, and not being able to see face to face, for me personally, I get a lot of energy off of other people. So we started this thing, which is now kind of hilarious because it's my sister typically and my really good friend Chrissy, and right, they come over, we hang out. Sometimes now we obviously go inside now, but we sat outside on the front porch for a while. Some neighbors would come over. It was a great way that we got to meet some of the neighbors. Just seeing people and then getting to know a little bit about them, my friends, and then also, I guess, my family, making time for them. Like if it's my nephew's baseball game, for instance, he was on the pitching mound. Like, is it convenient to go there on Saturday morning in Escalon? For me, no. Is it worth it? Yes. And so it's just that both things can be true. And I think you've really taught me that. Like, both things can be true, but the joy you get out of making the effort to go to the baseball game and watch your nephew pitch is so huge that maybe I could have stayed at home and worked a little bit more, but I can do both. Like, I really can do both, and learning how to do both. And I know that I'm kind of struggling through the words because it's a lot for me to kind of process when you ask me these questions. But hopefully it's making sense that both things can be true.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you remind me of is it's kind of like working out. When I got up this morning, I didn't sleep well. I really didn't want to do my workout, if I'm being totally honest.
Yeah.
But then I just tell myself, you'll be 5 minutes into it and you'll be happy you did it. And I always am. So, you get up on a Saturday morning, hey, Saturday morning, I get a chance to sleep in or do something else, and I'm going to drive to Escalon and see my nephew, but you're always happy you did it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so my point in saying that is pushing yourself through that. And I don't know if it's fear, but it's a type of fear, I guess, or, hey, maybe I deserve to just sleep in, or, okay, well, maybe you do. And that's an okay choice too. But pushing yourself more, having that self-leadership to say, yeah, I'm going to go to the birthday party and I'm going to go say hi to my friends at this other party. I know they're on the same night. I can make an appearance for an hour at the other one.
Yeah.
It's not, and it's an hour. It's not that big a deal, right?
Right.
That kind of mentality.
Yeah.
The second thing I think makes people happy is looking forward to things. Mary said this, and there was a documentary on Netflix called Happy. It's hard to find. You can certainly find it on your phone, but it's just called Happy. It's a cloud made into a smiley sign. That's the front cover of it, and it was just a documentary. They went over the world and found out what made people happy. This was one of the main things that I never, I kind of subconsciously knew planning made me happy, but I just thought I was a super planner. But they really validated watching that. I'm like, yeah, if you're going to Disneyland in 3 weeks, it's fun to look forward to. If I'm playing golf with Mary and Tiffany in 3 weeks and I'm inviting them to my club and we're going to do happy hour afterwards, I'm excited about that. And yes, if I'm going to Tahiti in 6 months, I'm excited about that. And half of the joy is looking forward to the event. And that's something I knew it intuitively, but they helped me validate that it's not just me that feels that way. So Mary, my question is, how do you plan all these things? Like, how do you really do it? I told you I use the 12-month calendar, but how do you do it?
Well, my dear friend, Chris Ringrose, she likes to start planning while on vacation. So sometimes when we travel, I'll say, no, do not take away my fun right now. We have to wait till the last day. And on the last day, then we can start talking about the next vacation. So she actually has really taught me about doing that, and just getting it on the calendar. So when you're doing something really fun, we went to Sedona this year, did some outdoor stuff, and Tiff and I were looking at the calendar going, hey, we should look at this, going to the some extra parks, Zion and that kind of stuff, because I feel good. I have really bad allergies here in San Joaquin County. So when I'm not in San Joaquin County, I feel fantastic because I can breathe. So we decided, instead of sitting around and maybe doing one too many cocktails, that we should plan an active event first, where we do activities first, and then we can also do some of the other stuff later. So we looked at that national map and just started plucking out places that we want to go, whether it's Zion, just going to national parks. There's a great puzzle. My mom likes to do puzzles. So we just start making it fun and incorporating it. And then not just talking about it, but looking at the calendar and doing it. I love to share when we're going on things that we like to do. And so my sister found like a half marathon run. Now we have Zion planned in March of next year. So that equals Mary, start getting some steps, right? Don't just stay behind the office. And now we're kind of planning like a friend family trip in March of next year. And it kind of just came about organically by looking at a sign and being present and really enjoying the space where I was in that particular moment and going, how can I get a little more in this in my life? Because I felt happy. Like I was so happy on that trip in Sedona. And I thought, well, I can recreate this again, can't I?
100%. You reminded me of a story, something that happened to me during COVID. I was had a chance to visit my parents, and my stepfather passed away. But oftentimes when I get together with my parents, it's my biological father, my stepmother, and my mother, and we all get along so well. We get along together, so we're all talking, and we had chatted before about maybe someday taking one of those riverboat cruises down Europe, down the Rhine River. And all of us had talked about it at different times, and it's just something the four of us really wanted to do. And so we had gotten together. There's not much going on because it's COVID. I'm like, hey, are all of you guys serious about that trip? And one of the parents said, yeah, but everything's shut down. Another person said, hey, yeah, we should look into that. Maybe I'll do some research. And then another person said, yeah, but the cost. And I said, Dad, go grab your laptop. Let's research it right now. I guarantee you we can book something in a week or so for like a year or two from now. I guarantee you they will take our money. And yep. I will, it was my parents. So I said, I'm paying for it. Like my treat, you probably, I don't know how much you spent to raise me, but it was several $100,000. I can take you on a vacation. And so in the moment, we spent the next hour and a half looking at different trips, seeing what the time frames were and all that. Long story short, we had it booked the next week, and we're going. It's not for another year, but we're all going. And so I'm booking that trip a year and a half in advance. So now every time we talk, we're all talking about the trip, right? And we'll probably get as much enjoyment thinking about taking the trip than actually doing the trip, right? So that's the looking forward to things, and it takes some planning. And one other thing, because I think it's, I'm afraid all kinds of different people will listen to this and they'll say, yeah, Todd, you can do that because you're successful or you own a company, or Mary's successful at what she does. Guys, I was doing this stuff when I had no money. I remember once my best friend Jim Reed and I, another one of my best friends, Glenn, we decided we were going to take a road trip to LA to see some concert. And we had no money, literally no money. Like, hey, how much money you got? We had enough gas money to get down there and enough to like eat McDonald's for like 3-4 days. And we were going to sleep on the beach, which is what we did. And that was the trip. That was one of the best trips of my life. Yeah. We literally slept on a beach, didn't shower, partied every night. I mean, I'm talking, we're in college, right? And we had the whole trip, including gas money, may have been $300 between three guys, right? So, you can rent a campsite for probably $25 a night. So we're not talking, I don't want to Last year, during COVID, I couldn't do much. I said, I'm gonna take a Todd vacation. I went 2 hours from here to this in the middle of nowhere called, I forgot the name of it. You go to Truckee, California, take a left and go north about an hour. And there's beautiful mountains and streams. I stayed in this little, it's like a hippie village. And I'm not a hippie, but it was this hippie commune. And I literally fly fish by myself for 2 days. It was a great trip, right? So, I mean, I may have spent $200 total on that trip. I mean, it was nothing, right? So it doesn't have to cost a lot of money.
And it's what you like to do, right? I mean, I know we booked a campsite. I didn't read the fine print. Our camper didn't fit in it. So Tiff and I went camping in February on the beach at Dorn Beach. So for any of you that know what it's like in a tent, and some of my sister's friends were there and they felt so bad because we were the oldest people there in this little demographic group that we have. They're like, oh, we would have pulled your trailer. We're like, our trailer wouldn't fit because our trailer is 25 feet or whatever and only fit 24 foot or whatever the heck is. So we're like, we're fine. We can do this. We can camp. And Tiff and I were so proud of ourselves because we were bundled up and we were having the time of our lives. We were frozen. I'm not going to do it again, Todd, but it was so much fun. We can't, my sister's begging me not to leave in the middle of the night. And it just became this fun little thing that you can have fun and be happy and, you know, make the best of it. And
100%.
You know, just make the best of it. And it was cheap. Like you said, it was cheap.
And think outside the box, you know, if you, let's say you want to go tent camping, but you don't want to sleep on the ground. Borrow a blow up mattress from your friend. Some of us have blow up those professional blow up mattresses. Someone will let you borrow it for a weekend. It's no big deal, right? Think outside the box a little bit. Sometimes I have friends and they'd say, oh, we can't go out to dinner with you because we have no one to watch the kids. I'm like, bring them over here. I'll pay my babysitter a little extra and ask her in advance. And it always worked out. But their first thought was, no, we can't do anything. I'm like, tip my babysitter extra 20. We're good.
Yeah.
We done 2 hours.
Some of it, like you said, some of it's just the mindset. It is so easy. I know I used to get there too, that like the first thing that we go to is that, oh, well, that's going to be hard. I can't be away from my job. I used to really struggle with it. I can't be away for a week. And now I've hired a fantastic team, but you also come back rejuvenated and ready to really serve people. And that's the piece that we talk about, all the things why we can't do something instead of all the reasons why we should do something, because you come back ready to just be better, feel better. It just brings some light. I don't know, for me.
Yeah, remember the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, one of the classic books ever written about self-development, and he had a whole chapter in there about Sharpen the Saw. And the idea was there's 2 men sawing down the same size tree, and one guy just goes to town, never takes a break, and he's just sawing the tree, trying to split it so it'll fall down. And the other guy, every hour takes 10 minutes, takes a rest, and sharpens the saw. And he gets done 3 hours sooner than the other guy. Mm-hmm. And that's a metaphor that they used in that book. And that's what Mary's talking about. You know, it's, the phrase that I use, I hear a lot of people use is, hey, I'm getting a little crispy, right? Like it's been too long since I've had a break. I'm getting a little crispy. So don't be so crispy, but you got to plan those things out. Yeah. So be smart about your vacations where you're planning them out. If you got 3 one-week vacations, don't take them all in summertime. Take one in March. Take another one in June. Take another one in September, right? So that you're spacing out your time off, because after 3, 4, 5, 6 months, you're going to feel crispy, right? So the other thing that I think when we talk about living in the now and developing this zest for life that some people have and others don't have at all, let's be honest. Some people are just grumpy. I call them grumpy pants. And I got a friend of mine right now who's a little grumpy, and he's been my best friend since 8th grade. And he calls me this weekend. I'm on this boat trip. I'm like, hey, why is Keith calling me? Keith, what's going on? He's all distressed about something. And I'm like, bud, you can call me back when you're less grumpy. And he's all, what are you talking about? I said, there's no talking to you right now. You're just grumpy. And I won't have it. I'm having fun. You're not. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to listen to your pity party for an hour. I'm on a boat drinking a beer. It's not going to happen, right? And so He says, but, oh, okay. But I got back and I called him. I said, bud, you're one of my best friends. I deeply care for you, but I'm not going to have a 30-minute pity party with you 3 times a month. It's just not who I am. You're killing my buzz. Now, if you want to talk for 5 minutes about that and 25 minutes about this trip we're planning, I'm in.
Yep.
Right. So regulating some of those things, I think, is important. So back to the top 3 that I believe is creating the feeling that you're growing. So physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, educationally, etc. I think this is one that people miss. And I'm going to be super direct at the risk of getting a lot of criticism. I believe that subconsciously in our culture, we graduate high school or college, and no one says this, but the mentality is that you're good for life. And the reason I say that, and I think one of the revolutions that we're going to have over the next 30 years is that, oh my God, I mean, someone will do it. It probably won't be me, but Tony Robbins or someone like him will come out and say, hey, the key to life is always be growing and learning. And there'll be a movement where, oh my God, having emotional happiness and growing all the time and doing things that stretch us is the key to life. It's one of the major keys. And at some point it'll click and people will lock in, right? Kind of like for all of us that lived through the financial meltdown, the savings rate amongst Americans went way up after that because we got really bad at spending too much money that we not only were not saving any money, we were going backwards because of credit cards and debt. It's kind of like that same movement. So I really believe in this one strongly. And Mary, I'd love some comments from you on things that you do to always feel like you're growing.
Really the reading piece for me has been a huge piece. I do like TV. It's how I like to unwind. But then I can hear Todd Scrima in my head saying, hey, maybe you should turn off the tube and read a little book. So I have a whole list of books, whether, Maxwell and lots of stuff that I keep. And then when I read that stuff, I feel so good about it. Like I feel so good. So I know it's like going to the gym. Like you're going to feel good about it. When you read the book, you get a different perspective. It almost gives you, maybe for me, it's a little bit of validation, like a validation of, oh, you were feeling this way and now you can react it that way. I always say it's fun to actually get older. I used to kind of dread it. And now I feel like I'm just getting the ability to say 2 things can be true and you can be growing over here and still super thrilled about the other things that are going on in your life. And just appreciate what you have from that standpoint too. Like you can be growing, but also an appreciation. And sometimes I used to get caught up in that where it didn't feel like you could be doing both, but I do think that you can, if that makes sense.
So you've said this twice now, and I think it's a nugget that I just want to highlight. You said a couple times 2 things can be true. I just want to make sure people understand what you mean by that. Can you just touch on that for a second?
So my best friend is looking at moving away to go to Oregon because she wants to go live next to her friend. And 2 things can be true. I can be very sad because she's my best friend, but I can be so thrilled for her because she's wanted to live next to her for a long time. So 2 things can be true. I'm very sad, but I'm also very happy for her. And I'll get emotional just because I'm so excited for her. So it's just 2 things can be true. And so it doesn't have to be like fear factor her. Well, what if you hate it there? What if that doesn't work out? What if you love it? What if you love it and it's the best thing you ever did? And now I visit you in Oregon every 90 days. And instead of me going camping, I go to a foodie scene. I mean, how great is that for me, right? So I think that's the piece. And a lot of life is like that, whether my sister right now is trying to have a baby. I'm going to maybe before everybody says anything, maybe going to think about having a baby. I don't get to have kids. So I'm super thrilled to maybe be a great auntie. I'm also, if she chooses or her husband chooses not to, super thrilled to have a travel partner for the rest of my life. Both things can be true. So I just see the love in that side of it. And that helps me feel happy.
So really well explained. I had a similar experience about 3 weeks ago. One of my best friends lives about an hour and a half from me, and he calls me up and uh, he says, "Hey, I want to let you know we're selling our house here, and we're moving to Florida." And I said, "Well, tell me about it." Now, for about a minute, I'm like, "Oh my God, my buddy's leaving me. I already don't see him enough." And I had that almost fear reaction. Then he describes the house. It's on the water. He got a big boat for it. He's next to one of my favorite golf courses, like 1 mile away from my favorite golf course to play in Florida. And 10 minutes into the conversation, I stopped him and said, "So what you're saying is I've got a free second home?" And he said, "Yeah." And he said, "Literally come out whenever you want." And I said, "Done." And so two things can be true. I can be a little sad about having fear about not seeing him as much, but I also can think I've got a second home in Florida now and can go see my buddy all the time.
Yep.
So that's, it's a beautiful thing to be able to think that way. So let me share my screen one more time, just to run through some of these. When we talk about growth, we were just talking about the last one, growth. It says take classes. I took, just on this subject, I took a art class about 3 months ago. I can't draw a stick man. And they had this place where you went and they said, "Hey, take your brush." They had it all laid out, and I painted a canvas, and the instructor had about 5 of us in the class, or 10 of us, and stroke by stroke. And I painted a pretty cool painting. Like, take a class. So that was amazing to me. I'm like, because I was really dreading it. A friend of mine asked me to go. I'm like, I'm not an art guy. But so take a class, therapy, daily gratitude journal, begin an eating and fitness routine, apply for that promotion, right? That one's near and dear to me. I have so many employees. I remember years ago, I remember her name, Danielle, was the receptionist. We had an opening. The company was much smaller. We had this opening to become a processor. Well, the pay difference is literally double, right? Once she was fully trained as a processor, probably take about a year to get through her training. And she had told me she wanted to do it. And then the promotion came up and she never applied. And I went up to her and I said, "Danielle, what are you doing?" And she's like, "What?" I said, "I saw that you know that job was posted. You told me 2 weeks prior you wanted to be a processor. Why didn't you even apply?" And she said, "Todd, I'm just scared." I'm like, "Honey, you already do some processing functions as the receptionist. You say you enjoy it. Just go to that next level." I said, "What would it do to you to make another $2,000 a month? Like, wouldn't that change your world a bit?" And she's all, "Totally. I'm living paycheck to paycheck, not saving a dime." I said, "Then go for the promotion next time." Like, but don't let fear hold you back from the growth. I wasn't excited about the art class because I'm not a good drawer. I just figured people would make fun of me. There was actually people worse than me in the class. Going back to relationships, again, some bullet points here. Terminate toxic relationships. I mean that, by the way. Life is too short. Man, there's some people that will suck the life right out of your brain. I'm vigilant. I'm just telling you, don't allow it. Schedule regular quality time with your top 3 friends. So that, again, planning. 2 family vacations per year. Get your kids involved. Where do you want to go? Date night with kids and the spouse. I started this thing. I was feeling a little disconnected from 2 of my kids. And so we started, as part of my agenda for family meeting night on Mondays, we plan our dates for the week. And so I make sure I get individual time with them. Sometimes my daughter and I are going to get our nails done. Sometimes it's simply a walk with one of my kids. Sometimes I know that I'm taking one kid by himself to 2 basketball games that week, and we'll talk about it, say that's our date, right? That's our time. Very important. I think that's a big one. Create a rhythm of vacations. We talked about that earlier. Become extremely transparent in your communications. let me talk about that one for a second. So this is a big one for people. Mary, I would love to hear from you how you, and honestly, I think you're good at this, but I don't even know. How do you communicate transparently to friends, family, people in your life that you're in relationship with? What is your tactic or your thought process when you go to communicate a conflicting subject, like a subject that you know is going to create some conflict?
That's a tough one, Todd. The truth is always better than the lie. So sometimes I will start off my saying with, hey, this is my truth. And this is how I feel. And I need to say it. And then I'm going to listen to what you have to say. And then we could agree to disagree. We can agree to move on, or we can choose to let this define us.
Wow. So you have a phrase, if I heard you correctly, it says, hey, can I tell you my truth?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I have a similar technique, I guess you would call it. First of all, I think environment counts. I want to be in a quiet place. I don't want to be at a party. I don't want to be drinking, right? There's certain things like, hey, there's a time and a place. I love going on walks and talking. I think that's a proper setting, or
Mm-hmm.
just sitting down, right, in your living room without the TV on and the kids rolling around. So I think environment is part of it. And then I just simply say, I want to go over something with you and be honest with you on how I feel. And then I will ask their permission. Is that okay? And once they say yes, I think a couple things happen. Number one is they know we're going to have some sort of conflict, and they've agreed to it. So they don't feel attacked. Once they feel attacked in any situation, you're going to get the boxing gloves on and go to war, and nothing gets done. So interesting, we have very similar tactics around that. So now, what do I mean by this? I don't have any problem, like I said with my friend who called me on the boat, saying, you're being a pansy, stop bothering me with your negativity. I said it like that. We have that kind of close relationship where we're very transparent with each other. I think that's appropriate. I think it's okay. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, and I think it also, I mean, we've heard this too before, where you say like, hey, is this something you think Robbins is right? Do you need my help with this? Or are you just complaining? Like,
Yeah.
And then people will catch themselves, because you don't want to be just a complainer. That doesn't really feel good. It happened at a family function at my house 2 years ago, probably. People just complaining, and I go, oh my gosh, we have to cut this off. Like, you guys can have 2 minutes. So they literally, I'm like, you guys get 2 minutes. And I don't know why I said this. And I don't know, probably because of all the coaching we've done, but just be direct in what you want. I don't want to have dinner with, negative conversations the entire time. So here's a timer, here's 2 minutes. You can complain as much as you want for 2 minutes, but after that, we only get to talk about things we're looking forward to, that we feel joyous. It's not fake, because there's plenty of things you're happy about. It's just easy to complain. And so now, like this last time on family vacation, my sister-in-law walks in, and my brother, who's older than me, says, oh, Mary, I'll shut you down. You better say it fast, because she's not going to allow that in this vacation home. And I'm like, you're right. And she's like, thank you. And it's like almost appreciated if you're just honest and making fun of it, like having fun with it.
I 100% agree. I love my stepfather. He passed away a few years ago, and the world was always falling. Great man, but the world was falling every day. And I got to where I would just have fun with him. And I say, yeah, Dad, he would talk about politics. I said, I know this is super non-PC. I would say they should just bomb the whole Capitol and Congress and get rid of them all. And I would say something like that, just to take him out of his rhythm. And it'd be like he'd think, is my son serious? He wants to bomb him? And then he got that I was joking. And then it got him out of his negativity. And he'd be just like, you almost got me, but just like, and I love the egg timer idea. Hey, you got 2 minutes to bitch, then it's over, right? The last thing on here is looking forward. I said, create a 5-year vision. Or a 5-year story is another idea here. So you're writing yourself a letter. This is a great, if you've never done this, this is great to do. You're writing a letter to yourself 5 years into the future in the present tense. So you might say, hey, it's June 2026. And this is what my physical fitness life looks like. This is what my love life looks like. This is what my financials look like. This is what my career looks like. This is what my relationship with my spirit, my spirituality looks like. And you just kind of describe to yourself your fantastic life 5 years from now. Great. Just always a game changer for people. People will spend, they won't do this for an hour, but they'll spend 10 hours planning the vacation, right? This stuff is simple stuff that is very important. Lots of things, planning vacations and long weekends, planning your career path 10, 20 years into the future. Take a life planning class. That's something I did about 5 years ago. You know, how often are you sitting down somewhere and spending a whole 8 hours talking about your life and what you're going to do or not do, right? So these are big, big things. Let me end this with a few things and I'll ask Mary for some closing comments. One is, if you get nothing out of these 3 things, here's kind of summarizes some of this. Number 1, we're all going to die. I know that sounds super morbid, but I'm crystal clear. We won't be here one day physically, and we're hopefully be somewhere else, but we ain't going to be in this life. That's for sure. Number 2, the quality of our life is the quality of our feelings. Oh, such a deep, profound statement, but it's everything. You know, at the end of the day, I ain't going to talk about the nice house I had. They're going to talk about the relationships, the trips that you took, the children that you raised, the charity that you helped. That's the kind of stuff that life is about. And I think a lot of people are confused. But the quality of our life really is the quality of our feelings. And the last one is super important. The past never, ever, ever, ever represents the future. Has no bearing on it whatsoever. Ever. Because the present is the present. And the future hasn't even happened yet. So all you have is right now. And all that stuff that happened in our childhood, good and bad, in our adolescent years, good and bad, all of that stuff, it's all in the past. And some was good, some was bad. Hopefully most of it good, but it doesn't even matter because it's in the past. And it's very hard sometimes to reconcile that, you know, the things that happened to us and how we were raised, all that stuff. I tend to have a very rosy outlook on things. And so I think everything's great. Even the bad things that happen, I think taught me lessons. That's how I choose to think about it, right? So Mary, on this whole idea of be happy now, closing comment from you. If you were to give someone one piece of advice or one thing that you do to help be in the moment and live a little bit happier life, what is that comment?
I think I would say when you hear somebody say something like, oh, I don't know if I could have that processor position, or I don't know if I can do that vacation, lean into the guidance of just showing somebody why to find the joy, because there was that person in your life at some point that leaned into you. And I look at my mentors I've had, and I'm just so grateful to be here at this company, to work for you and to work with all these amazing people. But they've given me a lot of skills, but they've believed in me. And now I want to be the person that leans into the new people. And when you do that, it feels really good, whether it's a promotion or to go on a vacation, right? Like somebody says, oh, I don't know. It's just lean into the people, I guess, lean into the people the way you've been lent into, find the person that made you feel really good and be that for somebody else. And that will really help you live with happiness and with joy.
That's so profound. I remember you reminded me of a conversation. You and I have had some good, deep conversations. And, you know, every once in a while, I'll just call Mary and say hi, and we'll get on these little tangents. But this one time, and this is, I want to, if I'm totally guessing, it's probably 4 years ago. And we had this conversation and I said, hey, I said something like, your light is really shining. Like you're so good at what you do and people are so drawn to you. Let's just let that out even more. Let's just, I don't know if you remember that conversation.
I
It was
do.
like, we got super deep, super fast. And I just felt a calling in my heart to let Mary know how special she is to the people that are in this company, the people that are around her, people that know her. And it's so beautiful to see. And that's why I wanted to do this with you, is because you're one of these people that you just have that spark, that energy. And I've seen it grow over the years to even bigger heights. And it's so cool. Every time you text me pictures of your weekend or I see the fish or what, I just think it's so cool. I'm like, that girl is doing it. She's living that life. That is so cool. Right. So, Mary, I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. You're one of the most beautiful people I know. Very fun to do this with you. Perfect subject for you. There was, for you listeners, there was at least 3 kind of magic moments with what Mary said. The last one, I think, being super profound is encouraging others to find their light and lean into them because someone's doing it for you, right? Whether it's a book or your parents or a best friend, someone's doing it for you. And we all need that. So Mary, thank you for being so gracious with your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Todd.
Hey guys, don't forget, forward this to someone. You find someone that wants a little, they can live a little bit bigger life. Forward this to them, text it to them, email it to them, however. And don't forget, we do home loans for a living. So Mary happens to work in the Lodi, Stockton, Northern California area. But whether it's Mary or one of the other, 47 states we're in, we're happy to help you to buy a house or refinance a house. That is what we do for a living. I wanted to do this because it's part of my give back. I had so many business coaches pour into me and life coaches. I just think this is good stuff to get out there. Makes me feel good to do it. Mary, thanks for donating your time. You're awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Go have a great day. I just want to invest in people that really want to be the best that they can be.